Hi, I'm Amber Young,
And I'm Barbara Phillips.
and this is
Let's
Talk EVM. Welcome,
I wish
welcome,
you guys could
welcome.
see us doing that. We're like completely so silly.
We love
I know, I hear, and I thought it must be a pre-recorded one.
That's
but
what I
it's
wanted to
different
do, but
every
Amber said
episode.
no.
I'm reconsidering the pre-recorded. We will see. Maybe a little bit
I've
of a
gotten some
splash. You know
negative
what I was
feedback,
thinking? I was thinking maybe we could ask if there's any of our listeners who have some skills in creating a pre-recorded little bite for us. Can help us out.
I have a candidate. Let's get back on that.
All right. But before we get onto our show, let me say our disclaimer.
Yes.
So the disclaimer is said for Barbara and myself. And the disclaimer is that all of the views that are expressed on this podcast are our own, and they are not the views of the United States government.
Thank you.
Yes. So with that, we're going to actually start with a soapbox moment, and then we'll introduce our guest. You heard her voice, but we're going to introduce her after Barbara's soapbox.
Thank you, Amber. I just want to say that why we're in this business? Why are we talking? What's the relevance of this whole podcast? And it is informed decision making. It really all boils down to that. Like, people get hung up on the data, and we've been very critical on the podcast in various forms and various episodes, I should say, about where people are generating a report for the sake of generating a report. But really, and I've said this before, but the primary audience of the performance data is the person who wrote it, the person who put that line in the sand, who put that estimate, who put that time phase BCWS, that performance measurement baseline in place, and then they're measured against it. And then when it doesn't go as planned, what are they doing about it? And then then you roll it up, and they see the broader management sees the broader picture. But it's that, people, please, what is the point? The point is informed decision-making piece.
And as early as possible.
There. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you,
All right.
Barbara.
Now we were so excited. Super excited. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Can I just say her name?
Yes.
Laura Bier. Laura Bier, everybody's favorite. I'm going to say Aussie, isn't it right? But I mean, she's a friend of all of ours. She's just a big contributor to the field. We all have seen her at the CPM conferences, and then for the past, I don't know how many years, she'll tell us, 10 plus years at the Earned Value Management Practitioner Forum, EVM Practitioner Forum. She's a huge contributor there. She's a forum leader there. But as Amber will quickly tell you, we will allow her to introduce herself.
But first, let's get the title of our podcast.
Fair.
So this episode is called GAO PM Assessment Guide, Contributor Laura Bier. So with that, Laura, would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a recovering government consultant. Just kidding. I've recently left government consulting after more than 20 years, and I'm now COO of a small software company in the restaurant industry. So big pivot, but my career was driven through sort of a process improvement lens, and that's how I came to Earned Value Management and had a lot of experience. I worked on programs and proposals for over 22 different agencies, and help mission driven leaders through very large complex programs and small tiny ones, so many over the years. So I've seen many ways of working, and it's always been my passion to help things come out good at the end.
I think a part of what we're seeing and what we'd love to share with you on this episode is how you're doing that and contributing with the GAO. So help us get a little bit of backstory on the role of the GAO and this guide that we're talking about here.
Yeah. So
what does GAO stand for, Laura?
Oh, yes. Let's
We're
go
really
back to the
hyper
very
on the
start.
acronyms, aren't we, Amber? We're really working on that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, all good. So the Government Accountability Office, GAO,
Yeah.
has been around for a long time, but their sort of mission is to provide the heads of executive agencies with, I'll use their quote, timely, fact-based, nonpartisan information that can be used to improve government and save taxpayers billions of dollars. So that, it ties in well with our mission as earned value management practitioners, fact-based, timely, nonpartisan information used to improve the outcomes of government programs. So, and not just government programs, obviously, but that's where a lot of us have our background from. And so I got involved with them a long time ago after, as Barbara mentioned, the Earned Value Management Practitioners Forums. Dave Scott, for many of you who might know his name, went back. He has run them for many years. They were actually a user group before they became their Value Management Practitioners Forum. And it's an amazing organization because many of the conferences that exist for Earned Value are aimed at policymakers and, higher level executives, whereas the Practitioners Forum is just that. It is for practitioner level people coming in. It's always very hands-on, very, best practices, sharing information, and not just policy level information, like really practical. Last year, they had some great, hands-on case studies that you could do and examples you could walk through of different reporting things. I just love what Dave Scott and Jess have done in that organization. And I think I've been going since 2011. We were trying to work it out. A long time.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. Well, originally I was going this is actually a funny story. I was going as a participant and I wanted to keep going and my company wouldn't pay. And Dave said, well, presenters get to attend free. And I was like, and so actually this might make you laugh. You can edit this bit out if you want, but my very first presentation was called WBS, taking the BS out of work breakdowns.
I like that. Not editing that out.
That's a catchphrase right there.
And I was like, you see, if you have a catchy title, you get their attention. And I got selected. And yeah, I've been there ever since. So so that was sort of my history. So yes, and it's in November in DC. So unlike some of the conferences that you have to travel to, out of the way locations, it's relatively easy to attend for many people. So really strongly, in Arlington.
Easy to get a hotel. Yeah, all those things are true. It's a great conference. Yeah.
Back to the GAO. So in line with EVM, I had gotten involved with them through the EVM Practitioners Forum because they had been presenting there at the same time. And I'd sat on a couple of panels with Karen Ritchie back in the day, who used to head that group. And
where is she now? She's out at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey.
Yeah. So lots of people have come through and done really great work. So GAO develops a number of best practices. So with their mission to provide, fact-based, nonpartisan information, as part of that, they develop best practices, which are basically the practices that then they audit programs against. So if Congress asks them to look at a program, they'll use these best practices for their own auditors to assess where programs could be supported or where they're doing well, et cetera. And so the process, this is, I think, the 5th guide that they've made. They had the cost assessment guide, the schedule assessment guide. They had the technical playbook. I forget the name of that one, the agile assessment guide. And now they're doing the PM guide, which is a great addition. And in some ways it might feel a little bit like a duplicate because you've already got the cost guide and the schedule guide and the agile guide.
Yeah,
But,
I did wonder that, Laura. Like, what is it? What is the additional contribution that it makes? Like, it did feel like what's unique about it?
Yeah, and so the idea of this one is that it does not go into detail. It's
Okay.
not nearly as much detail. It's intended as
So
sort
is
of
it
an
easier to
umbrella.
read or like?
Yeah, it is an easier read. And I think that, so back in 2016, OMB had the PM Improvement Accountability Act, and they developed all of these new sort of government-wide standards, but they're not really detailed, and they're really not accepted as program management standards. Like, no one uses them industry-wide. Like, if people ask you, they'll tell you about the PMBOK, they'll tell you about other things. They're not mentioning
That was right at the end of the Obama administration. PMI had a big lobbying group, and they got the PMI AA. You spelled it out better than I can. Passed, and then agencies were like, "Wait, what are we doing with this?" We had the first Trump administration, not really clear. Maybe put some, and the idea of it is, if it correct me, but was to put like a focal point or like a PM official in charge of each government agency that would then report in. I won't talk about what NASA did with it, but they did do a great job with it, I'm just going to say. But not all the agencies did. And then I'm not really sure where that legislation is or where government.
And I don't have a.
But yeah, to your point, that is GAO's job, because they work on behalf of Congress to enforce these. And how much power do they have? We don't know.
No, I haven't really kept up on it either. And I think you bring up a good point. Like, it's sort of, I don't know, to many of us felt like it faded away and there wasn't really an applicability. So this is intended as that sort of umbrella guide that bridges between, those generally accepted PPM standards that were published, and then on a practical level, what are you actually doing with that information? And so this guide is meant to be, a umbrella piece. I've said umbrella like 5 times, but that joins together the cost guide, the schedule guide, the agile guide, pull in other reference things as intended. And I think it does a good job of that. It's a really interesting one. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the GAO process, when they decide to build a guide, it's typically because they've found some need that they've been asked to either look into many times, or they've seen as a repeating driver of problems on programs that they've been asked to look at. And so in responding to that need, they then put together, they research existing practice, which is what they did. We just talked about the existing practice in PPM. Then they gather together outside experts and get, input on that. They'll sometimes actually have site visits, etc. I was lucky enough to have them attend one of our sites when I worked for a former contractor, CGI, and that was really great to be able to show them, some of the good things that we were doing on a government program. So they come and see, also a huge variety of practices so that they see them in context. And then they'll issue an exposure draft. They get comments on that exposure draft. And then they actually very strictly adjudicate those comments. They certainly don't take them all, and they really do assess them. And then sometimes
Laura, if I can interrupt you, how many people do they send an exposure draft to? Is it 5 people like you, me, Amber? What are we talking about here?
So they're posted publicly, so anyone can get access to them. But they'll actually send it out to all the participants of the
contributors to the actual guide. But that can be, that can be 100+ people, right?
Approximately, For this particular guide, you were a contributor to this guide, and I think others as well, if I'm not correct there. Yeah. What was that group of per guide? Yeah. What's your experience there?
So the cost one, I feel was perhaps the biggest.
Yeah, that's the Karen Ritchie one, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah, I
I
mean, she was
was
the main contributor, main champion, and then there were, of course, many, many people who helped her. Yes.
Yes, yeah. And I actually only came in at the end of that one on the revision stage. But then I was involved in the Agile one from the beginning. And really, some of the work that we had done early on with regard to Agile and EVM was what sort of drove some of the input, or was a primary reference in developing that Agile guide, because it was all of a sudden this issue where, government contractors had never done Agile, and then all of a sudden it was in contracts and no one knew what to do or how to combine. And we were on the front lines. So, I was involved in that one from the start, and that one was smaller. I think the cost one was like over 200 of us.
Oh, yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. And there were like hundreds and hundreds of comments that
But like you just said, Laura, they're so careful with the adjudication, right? I mean, they'll put it in a spreadsheet, and they will, one at a time, show you what they did with everybody's. I mean, it's really you really just have to commend GAO with the rigor.
And look, that is their job. Like, they want to have really solid guides. If they're going to be using them to assess billion-dollar programs, they want to know that it's good. They want to be good stewards of the government's, money, and really the taxpayers' money, and that's where it feels like really great to be able to contribute. And so for anyone, listening in, know that you can participate in these guides. You can find out more about them on their website, and they're always looking for more voices and more participants. I think participation peaked sort of around the cost guide. There was probably over 200 of us. I think there was maybe 100, 150 on Agile. And this one has been a bit smaller. And I wonder if it is because it feels like it's a bit more of a generic topic, but it happens to be a passion of mine.
And not only is it generic, but it's just an easy read, and that's a pleasure. Like, why are we burying our heads and wait, what are we supposed to make of this? But it's an easy, I think is it a top 10? I think it's a top.
I think that may we go in a little on the structure of the guide at 9 practice areas.
9, okay.
And what they are, just for our listeners to kind of get a feel for it a little preview before they go and do that easy read.
Yes. So the, as I said, the exposure draft of the guide is out for and it's publicly available. We can, I guess, link it in the show notes. Yes, the 9 guide, or the 9 practice areas, are grouped into 3 groups. And so one is develops and maintains a PM plan and a roadmap that are traceable to strategic planning. So, your program has to tie into your objectives. Develops and maintains an achievable lifecycle cost estimate. We know which guide that ties back into. Develops and maintains an achievable integrated master schedule. There's a guide for that. And so they're the first 3 that fall into the well-planned category. The next category is measured, and we were actually talking as a group in the last meeting about maybe there's some tweaks that we could make to this, but because it's sort of that, that idea of ongoing review, assessment, measurement. But yes, conducts risk management throughout the life of the program. Continuously monitors the reporting system for cost, schedule, and technical baselines. Hello, EVM folks. And then conducts root cause analysis and develops corrective action plans at regular intervals. So that's the sort of the measurement piece. And then the last 3 are currently called informed. And again, I think they're going to change the name of this one, but it's essentially like, how do you manage various stakeholders and communication? It's no point having this information without sharing it. So then this is identifying and applying lessons learned throughout the life cycle of a program, conducting independent reviews at key decision points, and having stakeholder engagement and regular communication and feedback. And so it's a good structure. The thing, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Laura. I wanted to jump to an exciting kind of segue, but please finish your thought.
Well, what I really, in the first conversation that I had with Jennifer and the team at GAO, I was like, where is the people? Where is the people? Where's the human element?
There you go.
Right.
And so they have added an introduction that talks about the importance of leadership guidance, that talks about the importance of team involvement in the development of these baselines and the development of the estimates, not some separate estimating team that came, during the proposal period.
Oh my God, that's the most dangerous thing. Oh my land.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. So they have added some of that, but I think the piece that I felt like still had opportunity was this idea of lessons learned not being like retroactive problem analysis, like post-mortems, but an actual ongoing process that is opportunistic and looking for what are the small experiments that we can try to build a continuous improvement practice into our programs. That what can we do that, will incrementally improve things, small experiments that may or may not work, so that we're making small improvements all the time rather than trying to do a 180 in a massive warship. So
yeah, really, I mean, what can you learn from the data to inform the future? I mean, sometimes the past informs the future and sometimes it doesn't, and you need the expert opinion to determine that. Sometimes the IAAC isn't relevant. Sometimes it's what people know on the line. It's risk-based. It's, I know I'm doing this. I mean, it's really got to be specific. So I love that word, opportunistic.
And for me, the word that jumped out is experimenting. I think often projects feel that they have to continue as is, and there are procedures, and there is a system description, and there are rules, and you have to follow the rules. But you still should have the spirit of creativity when there's a challenge. How do you come up with a solution, and how do you start to work all of that together? I think it's great. And with that, may I segue into an area that I think you're very passionate about, and that's with the people and the elements within project and program management that allow for the success of projects, that I think is really, when we first talked with you prior to this, you were talking about psychological safety.
Yeah.
So help us see how that weaves into all of this.
Yeah, and that was really what one of the other contributors was talking about how important data was. And we got to the end of her section and her commentary, and I was like trying to bring the group back. And I said, look, the data is only going to be accurate if you have teams that feel psychological safety, that they can tell you when something is either.
Hallelujah, Lordy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, your
Amen.
schedule is not going to be accurate if they don't feel okay saying they're running behind, or like, hey, we're months ahead, and whichever direction it is, there needs to be this sense that it's okay to say things, and it's okay to change directions, and to your point, experiment and change what's going on and learn and improve. And so really, I really encourage them to add a section on psychological safety. And some of the people in the group hadn't heard that phrase before. I thought was really interesting for PM practitioners. Yeah. And so I shared with them two famous psychological safety case studies. One of them is taught as part of the Harvard Business Review, the Harvard Management Program, MBA program, and then another one. And these are two sort of seminal case studies that if you're learning about psychological safety, you can look up. And the first of which was the NASA Columbia disaster, which of course, really, I get goosebumps talking about. I didn't even live in America at the Yeah.
I think we all do in America. I think we really do.
Yeah. And so what was interesting was that NASA really took a very strong ownership of what happened and how can we prevent that from ever happening again. So they've done a massive amount of research into both that individual situation, but then addressing the cultural issues that were identified through that. And so for those of you who don't know, you can read about it, but there was a foam strike damage and it was debated for days. And even though there was dissent amongst the didn't change the outcome. And so that they'd had a lot of successful missions. And so that sort of success bred complacency. And there was a lot of hierarchy, which can often happen on large programs and particularly in organizations with military backgrounds. You know, other educational institutions often have a strong sense of hierarchy. And so that was also a hindrance. And so they had learned the technical challenges from the Challenger disaster, but they hadn't learned the organizational lesson. And since then, they've really done a huge amount of work. And Barbara knows she's, working with them many days. I mean, did you have thoughts when you hear about that story?
It really does come up with some frequency, actually, at NASA. They have positions on every project to have that kind of risk officer that is not directly, it's like a QA job. I forget the name of it, but they're not directly under the control of the project manager, but, up the line, because they need an independent voice. They need that independent voice to be able to say, hey, people, this is not going the way that, everybody on the plan, despite, I can tell some dirty laundry there, but I won't. But no, it's tricky. It's tricky to really have that, but it was inspired by that event, to your point, Laura. Yeah.
And one more extension on that, just thinking of NASA, Laura, I don't know if you knew, we've had an astronaut on our podcast, astronaut Michael Fink, and he explained, and I think it might be an extension from what you're saying, the cultural changes within NASA. We asked him about something about his team building component. When he built a team, that how did they get to a specific phrase? And the phrase was clear is kind. And he said that when they came together as a team, NASA actually brought someone in who wanted them to work together to learn how to be a team, how to have those hard conversations, right? And then he also talked about commander's intent, just being very clear. But that whole concept that NASA brought in an entity to help them work through those cultural types of components
like
is
a facilitator. Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah.
And what did it mean to be successful? And he explained that to us. Yeah. So that was big. Yeah, Mike Fink. He's essentially professor now at MIT.
Yes, he is.
And I would just be a professor at MIT, but nobody's asking.
Someday, Barbara. We'll work on it for you.
All right. Thank you, Amber.
I mean, Barbara, one of the things that you mentioned made me think of, again, one of the ideas that I was trying to sort of get woven into the GAO PM guide, which is the importance of having many different formats and venues and forums for providing feedback. And it's really important that you have the opportunity for anonymous feedback so that and get people to perhaps say things that they might not otherwise be comfortable. But it's equally important that you have very strong, blameless ways to have non-anonymous feedback so that there is a chance to air grievances and highlight things and actually come to a resolution. Because if it's only anonymous, you don't get to hear the other side of the story and you don't get to workshop and resolve those things. And so having group forums, individual forums, anonymous formats, like all of those varieties of feedback are really important. And the more that you have options, the better the outcome for programs because they're able to address them.
That's wonderful.
So that was
it's all about communication ultimately, isn't it?
And many forms of communication, because people are differentiated in how they communicate, how they like to give information, how they receive information, and you have to have all of the different types for that type of exchange.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
verbal,
wonderful.
written, I
Hmm.
mean, in person, remotely. I mean, it was just a really amazing experience for me personally, because I do get like super excited about these topics. Like,
Mm.
I didn't even realize how super excited I get about
You
this
get
topic.
so excited about these topics that you start a podcast, Barbara.
Oh my God. I didn't start the podcast. You did. I just was like on a podium with Bruce Smith putting me in a cartoon. But what really happens is that it's just a game changer when you can see people shift the way that they do their work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Process works, practices work. These things operate to make people's jobs better. Recently, chatting it up with people at the job, it's about like when I suggested, hey, you're going to see you're going to see a morale issue when people don't know what they're supposed to be doing, or
Yeah.
they're being like SHIT upon because things aren't happening as fast as they should. Well, it's because they don't have the proper tools in place. And then
Or they're not aware of their roles and responsibilities.
or they're not aware simply of their roles and responsibilities for the processes and the tools and the practices that are expected of them. They're the people part, and it creates a no-win situation, and then people just drop out and they go work someplace else.
Okay,
And that's
so
a crime when it's so like right there. It's like right there. You can see it. But
that's why we need great consultants to come help people see it, to guide them to the light.
that's
right?
why we need
Or
Roland on the podcast. Where's
we do.
Roland?
We will. Contributors. That's where the contributors come into the GAO, right? To share the experiences so that it can be more filtered out broadly. Okay, so
Yeah.
can we end with our final use case? You kind of have us on a cliffhanger.
Oh, yes. So the other case study that you guys might like to look into, this one is with the Boeing 737 MAX. And it was another, really fascinating case study, and actually quite relevant to us in the EVM sphere and as government contractors. Employees had privately doubted the safety of the MAX. Like it was not a secret, but they had stayed silent because they were fearful of retaliation and layoffs. And that is hard when you are scared for your job. That is hard to speak truth to power. And so the root cause was really cost and schedule pressure that really crowded out that culture of safety.
Yeah.
And so they've really similarly brought in new leadership who has really worked to set the stage, insist on input from multiple levels, and appreciate the messenger, even if, it's not the message that you wanted to hear. And that's, a big challenge. Yeah. And I think it's a big challenge of many of these government programs, particularly when you're fighting against, legislative deadlines and, congressional requirements and constituent needs and policymakers, et cetera. There's just so many factors that come into these big programs. So I think the more that GAO can fold in some of these big practices and understand the impact that culture makes, and I know you two are very familiar with the IP2M
meter. Yes.
There you go.
There, and I've been really impressed with the work that's done to identify, environmental maturity factors that influence, in an outsized way, influence the positive and negative outcomes of programs, and understanding how important those cultures are. And so that's always been my mission. I've been talking about at EVM conferences for, 15 years. And after that first one on the BS of WBS development, I've literally never talked about EVM since. It's always been around culture and teamwork and mentoring and leadership, et cetera, because I really see that us as EVM practitioners, have that as the, have that as a mission.
And the foundation. I've heard it said that the environment is the broth of the soup. So it makes everything come together. So you really have to focus on the environment and the culture. So yeah. Okay. I think we could keep going and really
Forever.
there's just
We
so
love you
many
so much, Laura.
wonderful. Yeah. I think we're wrapping it up here. Any closing thoughts? I don't have any amblings today, but any final words or thoughts? I'm very appreciative of being a part of the GAO process as well, and look forward to contributing as much as possible in the future. I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and your experience matters. So with this podcast, we do have, we encourage more and more people to listen and treasure our listeners. And we would imagine that you have some interest in EVM. Please contribute in all the ways that you can. Find those ways to have your voice heard, like Laura says, whether it's anonymously or non-anonymously, in whatever forum. And we hope to meet you and see you in all different places and continue to talk EVM. So that's my last closing thoughts. But anything else, Laura, you want to share with everyone before we go?
I think you summarized it beautifully.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is, Laura. That's what Amber does. You can't beat Amber. She's got the number.
We're all doing this together. It's great.
Yes,
I'm so proud to be a part of this community. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it then. That's all from Let's Talk EVM.
EVM.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you
so much.
Thanks, guys.